Hello, and welcome to our Black History Month special episode of TETV, presented by the Big Break Foundation. My name is Sarah Beal Sager, and we strive to amplify, enlighten, and celebrate inclusion through storytelling and authentic conversations. We're just going to jump right into it today, which is a very special day in Black History Month. It is also Valentine's Day, so don't forget to love each other. Our first guest, her name is Free Friginda. She is the Chief Development Officer for Mykotu Incorporated, a global leader in themed entertainment, live events, and immersive brand experiences. Free has been featured in Forbes, Fast Company Magazine, Essence, Minted.com, KTLA, Fox, and she's here with us today. Mykotu was awarded top prizes for Clio and Cannes Lions Gold for the South by Southwest World exhibit that she had with her company. Our second guest is Nick Taylor. He is the founder of Mastermind Studios. He is the principal designer and creative director. Nick Taylor is the principal designer at Mastermind Studios, a themed entertainment design and build firm. He has over 20 years experience in the filmed entertainment industry, and we are so happy to have you both here today. How are you?
Hi.
Happy Black History Month.
Happy Black
History. Is that what's happening? Is that what's happening this month?
That is right now. We're 2 weeks in.
Let's talk about that intro. That intro was a high bar. There was
right. I don't know if you had the same intimate, Nick. I was like, oh my gosh, all those people on there. Am I on the right interview? Like, should I?
Yes, you are. I don't know if you heard your intro. Yes, you guys are a big deal.
Oh boy, right. Pressure's on.
All right. Yes, and we are here, yes.
It's okay. We can take the pressure off of you directly, your careers, for just a little bit. Let's talk about Black History Month in general. What was your experience with Black History Month in the past, growing up? What do you think about it when you think about Black History Month?
Great question.
I'm processing everything. I'll jump in. I have an interesting connection with it. I didn't grow up in the US. I grew up in Cameroon. So Black History Month was every day. It was Black History life. That's how you celebrated. You woke up in the morning and you went to school and you strove for excellence, because immigrants are all about 100% or bust. And you just were steeped in family and culture and language and music. And all of that was just part of your upbringing. If anything, it was coming to the US where all of a sudden you realize you weren't the majority. Not everyone looked like you. Not everyone understood your accent, or understood where you came from. And you now had to sort of justify your worth or your existence by knowing who you were. And so my intro to Black history was later in life. It was in my teenage years when I moved to the US, when I had to honestly learn about African-American history, which was very different from West African history, specifically Cameroonian history, and to kind of relearn a very important part of our collective existence that I honestly wasn't as familiar with. And so we can talk about that in a second, but that was my sort of intro or upbringing with Black history. It was just part of life, and I had to learn it into my teens. But Nick, I don't know if you had a different experience.
I love that story. Yeah, growing up in the US, Black History Month was the time where you had to be a Black history character, be it, Rosa Parks with Jackson 5 or George Washington Carver, and you were that character for the remainder of the month, between being called on to stand up and read passages during Black History Month in school, or putting on performances, or lift up your voice and sing, which is a very, very long song.
And you had to hit that pitch, that note.
Exactly.
It
was one of those things where I don't know. For personally, it just felt like, why is this not a thing we're doing all the time? Why are we just doing this in the month of February? But I was also fortunate enough to, start my education at a predominantly Black private school where we did have a lot of Black history throughout the year. So that was fantastic. As my education advanced, it was definitely a complete switch and opposite of that, where I was at predominantly white schools and definitely had to, represent an entire race by myself, which is a lot of pressure, but I pulled it off. I did it. I think I represented us pretty well. So yeah, I mean, here we are in February, shortest month of the year, celebrating the accomplishments and the trials and tribulations of African Americans.
Yeah. I also went to a predominantly white school, and it was just it's different. It's different, y'all.
Right.
Black History Month, those 28 days, that's like all you get sometimes. And
Time to
that's
shine.
Well, did you feel a sense of pressure, like the kind of pressure that's actually debilitating, where you are expected to not only be the mouthpiece, the ambassador, the spokesperson, the teleprompter journalist, to be on pulse with every bit of information or pop culture or history, but you were also expected to kind of encompass what is Black excellence, in a way that has to do with how you behave, how you present, what you know. Sometimes I found it just like almost too much to handle. And I think it's just the pressure of condensing history into like, 28-day period, 29 if you're lucky on every fourth year or whatever. But when you're coming of age and you're too busy trying to figure out your own identity and where you fit, and whether it's okay to have a passion and creativity as opposed to all the other sort of conventions, adding the other element of knowing yourself 400 plus years back, actually more, if you want to go beyond slavery. It was just a lot of pressure, and I find that I think I may still be dealing with that in my immediate love and resistance to having that spotlight put on me in any situation. And I don't know if anyone feels similar or different.
I think
Nick,
you're definitely not wrong. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. There is that sense of pressure and spotlight on you if the topic of African Americans or Black people even comes up. I think, especially going to a predominantly white school, it was like, look, if you don't want to talk about it, we don't care anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But now in my adult life, there's definitely that awkward silence in those eyeballs when someone Black or African American says something, and then everyone kind of like looks at you like, is that okay? Are we doing okay? You're like, it doesn't, it's fine. I guess just don't say anything offensive and you're okay. Yeah, it's a lot. I think inside and outside of the community too. I think with people who are outside of the Black community, there is that pressure to know a lot and recite a lot and be a mouthpiece. And then inside the community, there's a lot of pressure to know your history, know your roots, represent your people. And it's just like, I want to do both, and I want to do both really well. And it's a lot of pressure. And I just want to eat. I just want to like snap and just do regular things without, but you don't have that luxury, twice as hard, half as far. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, now not even luxury. The term now is privilege.
Correct. Oh, wow.
Right. I mean, it's we don't have that privilege. But that's chapter 2 of this discussion.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot we could unpack there. Yeah, I mean, lots of Black history, and I mean, everything up to like this moment is history. So like that's a lot of human time. Right. So much. But we could talk about the present. You guys want to move into the present a little bit? Like, history is great, but present is now. One thing that happened extremely recently was the Super Bowl. That was yesterday. How do we feel about that Super Bowl halftime show?
Okay, can we just start first with the fact that if we were having the same conversation, 3-4 years ago, which seemed like a very different, well, maybe not even 3, 2, in the height of what it means to just take a knee, what it means to merge public persona with platform, with activism, with sports entertainment, with high level capital and dollars. Um, there was such a different kind of discussion, I think, that's happening, which was really, why are we giving money to this with our eyeballs, with our ad dollars, with our consumption? And I just feel a little bit like that kind of just went away. No one really talking about it. At least I'm not seeing it in the collective consciousness. In full disclaimer, I did not watch the Super Bowl, and I think the truth is I probably wouldn't had I known it was happening. But I chose to go see a play. Even that said, I wasn't rushing to watch it, and it's for that reason of, have we forgotten how all the disparities that are existing currently right now with sports entertainment, specifically with the NFL, as an institution, as a business, and whose story is being told, who actually benefits from it? How does that all of a sudden not become part of the talking point because we had a stellar lineup of LA's finest, or rather Southern California's finest? We'll keep it a little bit more high level.
Right.
But I don't know. I was a little torn because I wanted to love the beauty that was going to be on stage. I really wanted to support it, but part of me just felt torn, and I suspect that's consistent with a lot of other issues that affect, African Americans, but specifically just people in diaspora. Regardless, it's when do you put your activism and your passion aside for just some good old fashioned entertainment? Like, when is that not appropriate, and when is it absolutely mandated? I'm still on the fence about it. So I don't know. I was torn about the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's definite. Like, I think that can be said for a lot of like spectacular entertainment. It's like, when do you take the win, and when do you say, got some questions, could have been better, let's do a critique.
And I think it's a double-edged sword, because you definitely want to be picky with how you spend your money and give your attention, and where you direct your eyeballs. And at the same time, if you choose to not watch or skip, then certain people have the platform of saying, look, we gave you a shot and 12 people watched, so why would we do it again? And you're like, okay, that's fair. I get that. But at the same time, we didn't watch because of a certain reason. And it's like, no, I hear what you're saying, and yet the numbers don't lie. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the NFL goes, there's definitely some controversy there. There's a lot happening. I think part of what happened to address the inequity was, making Jay-Z director of entertainment really was supposed to be a treaty or a respite from what we had seen before. And honestly, the NFL, unfortunately, is a lifeline for a lot of individuals of color that wouldn't necessarily have another path to move forward. So you want to face certain things. You want to take a knee. You want to address the inequities. You want to address the inequities, and at the same time, you don't want to take away opportunities from others.
Yeah,
so it's a tightrope to walk.
Yeah, it's extremely complicated, and I don't think we'll solve it this Black History Month.
But it ties directly into themed entertainment, right? Because you want to take your experience, you want to take your background, your history, your culture, and you want to impart it into the projects you're working on, the stories you're telling. And at the same time, you're battling those saying, how come everything you say is always about Black people?
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, how come more of your stories are about Black people? If you would say it more, I wouldn't have to say it. And so I think we're still in our professional careers trying to find a balance between being ourselves, being represented, being heard, but also not having to be the ensign or the flag bearer for an entire culture, but I don't. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a ton.
Well, no, I so agree with you, and I think part of the challenge is you recognize excellence when you see it, and excellence isn't something that you have to explain. If you're explaining, you're failing, right? So you know it, you see it, you feel it, and you buy in because it makes you feel good. You want to be part of that culture. You feel inspired by it. That is pretty much all of Black entertainment and Black culture. We are the foundation of what makes things cool. We redefine the benchmark for what's the bar that you need to attain in order to be considered, you've arrived or whatever. And it's a big shoe to fill, but it's also a collective thing that sometimes is just innate. And other times has a lot to do with how hard you're working and all these other factors. But that said, I think part of the challenge, whether it's in themed entertainment, even going back to the NFL, part of that recognition is saying, if this is the baseline on which we're all thriving, right? We are all having a good time because of this music. We are all enlightened because of this design or because of this story or because of this look and feel. Then why isn't the compensation also reflected in that? So let's move NFL aside. Let's come back to theme entertainment. And that's theme parks, that's brand experiences, that's museums, that's aquariums, that's zoos. Why aren't the stories that we're telling, which we know people thrive off of, people want more of, why aren't those stories being created by more diverse schools? Why aren't the stories that are being told representative of more diverse cultures? It starts with Black people, but just in general. And if we don't put value to the things that actually are the catalyst for revenue in so many levels, then it is a double-edged sword. It will continue to be a complicated relationship of where do you draw the line between what is Black and what is universal. And we know that there is no line. Black history is American history. Black culture is American culture. But yet somehow we pick and choose, we meaning the collective of our industry, pick and choose when it's considered Black versus when it's something that we can all profit from.
I think that's a great point. How do we walk the line on, I know I'm not the host here, so I don't want to ask too many questions. How do we walk the line between our stories being told and represented versus appropriation? And now or tokenizing. And it's like, it's so great to see Black stories and hear Black stories. And then the way it's presented, the way it's told, you're like, that's not quite how I pictured that story coming out. It was a little more cartoonish than I was hoping for.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack and be said around you being able to tell your own story. And not necessarily being grateful for the fact, not being ungrateful, but not being just grateful for the fact that there's one Black princess. I'm not going to say what kind of princess. I'm just going to say princess.
We know
Cook, so a businesswoman, also potentially undergoing PTSD because of all the stress that she's exhibiting. She's a princess, which is fascinating. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like, sorry, I think Sarah, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No. You're good.
No, I was going to ask another question sort of about this. So continue.
Who's telling our stories and who is benefiting from those stories being told? And when I say benefit, I don't mean who's profiting, because at the end of the day, yes, it's the organizations. When you charge for someone to access your experience, be it an immersive art installation or a theme park or a movie or whatever, there's a transaction that has been made, right? You pay me and then you come and have a good time. Great. There's going to be money to be made. Who's truly benefiting from that story, that experience that's being shared? And oftentimes it's not the people who are telling it, because the people who are telling it is a very small group. It's very cis. Generally, it's white male. And when I say telling these stories, I mean the decision makers behind, these expansive worlds that we're going to. And it doesn't just have to be a destination. I mean, if you think about the lines that are being blurred now between IP, content, gaming, location-based entertainment, it's all intermixed. So it's no longer just the major studios that you can sort of pinpoint and say, well, it's all cis white men, and so we need to change that up. It impacts publishing, it impacts game development, it impacts art, visual art, because these are now the source materials from which location-based experiences are developed. So who's actually at the writing? Who's in the writing room? Who's in the inception stage for this when ideas are getting pitched, when ideas are getting vetted, and why? Who's funding, and how is that capital being dispersed? I think those are the more closed door questions that we may not necessarily have access to, but we see it when the final product happens. You see it when it opens. You can tell, there were no Black people in that room. You could tell,
Or there was one. There was one Black person.
There was
when you said who was benefiting, the way that I heard it was who is being soothed by this story. Who is really just getting what they need. Like, yes, I checked that box. This story was good. And if it's not the person who is theoretically being featured in it, like, maybe that's a problem. But I wanted to ask, how have you seen the themed entertainment industry change in your careers? Has it gotten better, is what I'm really hoping you're going to say. But feel free to answer it however you need to.
For whom, Nick? I'm going to pass that to you.
Oh, wow. Okay. Is it getting better? Is a very vague, not vague question, but I think it's very subjective. I would say yes, it is getting better. It's slow, but it's moving in the right direction for the most part. You're definitely seeing operators address the themes of certain rides. I think what is it, Splash Mountain, or I can't remember which ride it is. Anyway, you're definitely seeing operators address the stories they're telling and say, to some extent, say, hey, this is probably not appropriate anymore, and let's reskin it, let's retheme it to something that fits a more general audience. That being said, Freem, I'm going to pass it back to you because I could, let me gather my thoughts a little more.
Yeah, I think my short answer is no. Things are not getting better. Things are status quoing. Things are staying the same. I think we had an opportunity in 2020 with a lot of things happening in collective consciousness, where we had a very, very public, high-profile lynching that occurred that we could not ignore. It was not the only one, but it was the one that, for whatever reason, the universe decided we cannot ignore this one. Thank goodness for social media and phones and sharing of information. We had a government system that, for the most part, thrived off of polarization and sort of hate, for lack of a better word. There was profit that was made and definitely sought after in debate, in anger, and we saw that across the board, not just in government, but in, quite honestly, Thanksgiving dinner. And then in addition to that, you had a very, very important resurgence of, wokeness and what does it mean to be accountable on a corporate level and on an individual level. On top of all of that, we had a pandemic. So you are stuck at home with your thoughts, consuming all of this information that's happening. So there was just no way around it. We had to address the elephant in the room as a nation, as individuals, as family members, as businesses, and we had to ask really hard questions about, are we doing our part? And it's not just enough about putting a black square on your social media page for a month or whatever, but like, truly, what are we doing? And that was exciting because for a short window, there was a sense of dialogue. Organizations were formed based on the urgency of diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives being included, as part of the collective consciousness. And it felt like there was movement, there was momentum. And then I feel like with a lot of things that happen in a capitalist society, and themed entertainment ultimately is capital driven. We don't thrive off of volunteer work and altruism. We are here to make money. And so when you are beholden to your ROI and your bottom dollar, at some point you got to put all the nice things aside and make a choice and decide whether you're going to be about profit or if you're going to truly be about social initiative and doing good. And a lot of times the long-term value of consciousness and social initiative aren't given enough weight against pure profit, where profit wins. And so what I feel like we are going through now is almost a convenient return to the status quo, which is do just enough to not get people tweeting about you and canceling you, hire just enough roles to put out a really great press release to feel good about your organization. But the infrastructure, the sort of underground railroad of empowering narratives and social capital still doesn't really exist and still isn't equitable or accessible by a lot of individuals as designers or as creators or even on the producerial side. So I do fear that we are returning a little bit to the safety and comfort of let others do it. We'll just go about our business and try to stay profitable. And rightfully so, people have experienced a lot of loss. So I'm nervous. I don't. I think there's more urgency in folks that do have a platform in whatever industry they are, and to use organizations like Big Break and TETV to be able to still put a spotlight on these conversations that are conveniently getting left to just February of the year.
Yeah. Nick, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I'll respond to that. I'll respond to that by saying, free, if you taught a class, I would take it. I would enroll in that class.
You would hate it?
I am very much into everything that you have to say. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. We're definitely is apparent that we're moving back towards that status quo of do just enough, put up your rainbow flag, put up your brown heart, your black heart, your black fist emoji, just enough so that people feel satiated and you can return back to making the money that you came to make.
Mm-hmm.
There is no I tell my clients often, you can't always fix everything. You can't always, I'm working on a project right now that is a 1920s train that we are turning into a themed entertainment experience. And a lot of what comes up is ADA accessibility. And unfortunately, without redoing the entire structure of the train, some portions of that are just not, wheelchair accessible. But I tell my clients often, intention is key.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't do everything, if you can at least show that there was an intent, show that you are trying, show that, look, we may not be able to do it right now, but it's on our minds and it's top of next year's budget and XYZ. We're working on it and we hear you, we see you. Our intention is to make this enjoyable for everyone. Yeah, there's I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot to be done. There's a lot to be undone for that matter. And I think we're finding ourselves in a situation where we're constantly being told, why aren't these stories more important? And it's like, well, we did our marketing and we asked around and people weren't interested in hearing the stories. Okay. So who are you asking? Who are you talking to? Who are said people? And some, the customer's always right is wrong, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes people don't know what they want to hear until you tell it to them. And they're like, I had no idea that was such a cool thing that I can learn about. So I think there's going to be, a time is coming and should come where organizations need to find more integrity and need to either stand up for what they believe or stand up for what they believe in. And if what you believe in is money over people, then just stand up and say that. And if you actually do care and want to make a change, then say that and start working towards making those changes. But I think this pendulum is only going to swing in one direction for so long before we start to force it to go back the other way.
If you think about it, we're almost like, as an industry, I feel like we're designing ourselves into a corner, because one of the main things that you're always sort of pushing toward is how can you maximize your audience attendance, meaning how do you make an experience that everyone can enjoy? And what that means unconsciously is that you're either diluting whatever the experience would be because you want it to be just enough bite size for everyone to take in, or you are focusing on the most high level, the most high surface approach to any narrative, right? You don't want to, you dare not go deeper because you risk getting people bored, offended, canceled, what have you. So I think it's an interesting situation where designers almost are learning to unlearn what has been so common, for the last 20, 30 years. And I think the new approach, or the new, I guess, blueprint for inclusivity isn't trying to please most, but it's saying, let's really make sure that we are addressing all the challenges. And in so doing, we're allowing everyone to have a heightened experience, as opposed to just making sure that a few people can maybe do a portion of this. If you're talking about AD and accessibility, as opposed to, no, why shouldn't everyone have the best experience? I don't know. It's that one size fit all, or universal guest experience angle is something that people are having to unlearn, because maybe it should be more uncomfortable. Maybe entertainment shouldn't be the main measurement of success. Maybe discomfort and dialogue and awareness can also be entertainment, and that's not a bad thing.
Right. I think there's a level of exclusivity too. And by exclusivity, what I mean is, because we can't make everyone feel included, then let's jump to the multiverse, and now no one's. Now we're going to go to people that are purple. We're going to go to aliens. They've got 12 ears. Now nobody gets a piece of the pie. We're just going to have
connect to it.
You ruined it for everyone. So yeah, I mean, there is that level of uncomfortability that should exist. That I know entertainment and theme parks and so on and so forth are meant to be a break from the everyday troubles, but at the same time, they're also meant to learn and teach and reach and inform. So be more open-minded, be ready to be informed, be ready to be reached and taught.
Yeah.
We do have a question from the audience, if y'all are ready. It's, what do y'all think of so-called cancel culture? And I think this is a very open-ended question. Is it useful? Is it useful? Have you participated in it? Have you been the victim? Have you been canceled? What are y'all's thoughts?
Well, interesting. I love that. Hi, Patrick. I love that you use the word "so-called" because it is cancel culture or it's not, and that's what we're in right now. So even the back and forth about it, I think I get what you're going at with calling it so-called, because others have different terms for it. I mean, to me, it's about accountability. It's accountability culture. It's holding individuals and institutions and organizations accountable for the history, but also addressing unanswered questions as a way to move forward. So cancel culture, to me, isn't necessarily about being good or bad, as it is saying there's a whole spectrum of conversation that needs to happen when you really are held accountable. It's about acknowledging what the grievance is, where you went wrong as an organization, what steps are being taken now to right that internally or forward-facing, and where are you headed in 100 years, in 50 years, in 5 months, and transparency and letting people see that so that they can believe you. Because if they believe you, they buy into your brand, they consume what you're putting out there, and they become ambassadors for you moving forward. So it actually is a good thing if you can be held accountable and sort of meet your end of the bargain. On the flip side, I do think that oftentimes, if you are so reliant on the wave and the mob of reaction to you, that tells me that you as an individual, as a designer, as a creator, as an organization, are not clear on your North Star. You're not clear on your why. So there's going to be people pushing and tugging opinion. You're not going to please everyone. But if you as an organization don't know where you're headed and you're not clear on your why, then yes, you will be susceptible to that wave. And it's going to feel like cancel culture when in fact it isn't. So it goes both ways.
Yeah. Nick, what do you think?
Welcome back. Yeah, cancel culture is, I think cancel culture is real. It definitely exists. I think it suffers from the same bad branding as something like defund the police, where I think the principles are there in terms of we want to pivot money away from certain organizations and towards others that help address systemic root issues. And I think with cancel culture, it's been demonized to say this person is no longer allowed to have thoughts, opinions, or any kind of free speech, when in fact, cancel culture is really, we're canceling that idea.
Mm-hmm.
We're canceling your behavior towards this thing. Just like Free said, find your North Star and figure out what your why is, why you're saying that, why you're coming at it from that space, and why you're probably wrong, which is why you're being canceled in the first place. And understand that there is a path and there is the ability to rectify, or because sometimes people misspeak, right? I haven't been canceled yet, fortunately, so far, but I've definitely misspoken in the past. And
I want to get to a point where I have a platform big enough where I can be canceled.
right.
That means
as soon as I get that platform, the first thing I'm doing is getting canceled.
right.
Now that I have your attention, I'm going to say some things. I have some. Don't be thick with people. Yeah, cancel culture it's real, and it's in these streets, just like the struggle.
Yeah. So you guys have talked about the North Star, your why, like needing to have, I'm going to go back a little bit further, needing to have people in the room so that you can have a North Star, that you are very firm on your goals and who you're going to include. So I have a question about, if this is something we see that we need, why is it still so hard to get into this industry? Why do we need a big break? Why? Just why? Please tell me.
I used to work for an organization, and as we all have, and at this organization, I was having a brief chat with the director of HR, and we were having a conversation about race, about initiatives, about low-hanging fruit. And she said bluntly, look, there's a lot of unconscious bias to address. I'm going to be completely honest with you. White guys hire white guys. I think people have the tendency to hire others that look like them, be it conscious or unconscious. So I think because you are coming into an organization, into an industry that is in a country that is predominantly run, managed, organized by a certain group of people, they are more likely to hire and advocate for and work with and network with and live around others who look like and grew up like them. I think our society is not great at embracing our differences, and instead we let those differences drive us apart. And so I think we're very nice and cordial in the boardroom, and then once we're out of there, I get in my car and do a certain thing, and you get in your car and do a certain thing, and we don't talk or socialize or communicate really until we're back in that boardroom again, and that is problematic. Yeah, there's also the whole issue of, it's really hard to hire people of color because they're just not interested in this industry or in this field. So there's the systemic issue around why there's not more people of color, specifically Black people, in theater entertainment, and not just at the front gates or walking, around whatever the experience is, but actually in that room making the decisions. And why they're not there, I couldn't. Yeah, I don't want to get canceled, so I'm going to pass it back.
It's a big question.
Comfort. I mean, we in our industry, themed entertainment industry has a multitude of events. A lot of them are business events that are about trade associations coming together and people networking and doing business and literally, hopefully, working together. And those business deals are based off of relationships that go many, many, many years. And then some of the events that happen are truly just social networking events. And in a recent industry event that was official, sort of, gathering for like-minded thinkers and designers to hopefully learn and be inspired and to have business from each other. There was an informal question that was asked. And basically the question was, how many of you are more likely to hire people that you know? And I would say 90% of the hands in the room went up. And I got to tell you, that was so eye-opening for me, because it was honest and it wasn't malicious. And that's what I took from it. It wasn't oh my gosh, there's some conspiracy of people who want to work with everyone in this room. It was a human confession, a shared human vulnerability, which is, yes, I will more likely hire someone that I know over a new person that I don't know, because there's a shorthand there, there's a familiarity, there's a safe space. So if we look at that sort of human connection as the reason that underlies why there's a feeling of inequity, then part of it is saying it's even more important for us to be uncomfortable, to say, yes, even though I have the right person for the job, who I think in my eyes works, I'm going to step out of my comfort zone, and I'm going to say, how else can I look at this position? How else can I look at this story, this plot, this design approach? Who else am I not considering? And I feel like the assumption that you're just going to stumble onto a random person and it's going to be this fanfare of epiphany in terms of that's the hire is also inaccurate, because it takes time, it takes work, it takes growing a culture within your organization that also feels welcoming enough to attract a diverse pool. What's your pay structure? What kinds of opportunities are you putting in place to allow people and different voices to feel empowered, to feel like they can grow within your organization, to feel like they can drop whatever it is they're doing in wherever part of the world and come and be there? Those systems have to be in place in order to attract that competitive talent, because they are there. And if you assume that you're just going to play it safe and work twice as hard to attract a more diverse talent pool, the way most minorities have to work twice as hard in order to be acknowledged, then you are lying to yourself if you think you're going to grow or expand as an organization. And that's just full stop.
I want that like on a poster in my bedroom.
On a neon tube lettering.
Yes. Yeah, I would take it. Heartbeat, no questions asked. So I guess, yeah, I want to transition a little bit to the future. Like, clearly we're not going to clean up everything going on right now. There's a lot, but we have so much time in the future to figure it out. So I'm wondering, like, what could themed entertainment do in order to foster social change? Is there anything we're doing right now? What could be done better? Visions. Let's just vision board real quick.
Vision board. Themed entertainment, a vision board for the themed entertainment industry in the future, is what you're saying?
Yeah. What could the themed entertainment industry do to foster social change? What can we do to like help humanity along to a greater sense of knowing?
Wow.
Anything different than what you're doing right now?
Well, I mean, just the fact that big
right now is not quite working. So try something different. Try something new. Be more experimental. Stop focusing on the bottom line. I understand we all have to eat. I've become very accustomed to eating. I want to keep that going. But at the same time, I guess growing up, I was always told, each one teach one. You make it somewhere, you reach back, you help someone behind you. And I think part of the problem that I see on a continued basis is that it's us that constantly have to do the reaching and the teaching and the recruiting and the outreach. Like, sometimes you don't necessarily want to have the burden of bringing other people that look like you to the table. You are focusing on your job. You're focusing on your advancement, and not that you are. It's not like crabs in a barrel where you don't want others that look like you to succeed. But it's just for like you were saying, like 2 years ago, we definitely had a racial reckoning where we really the society had to start asking more questions and really confronting where they were. And I think perhaps we've all experienced this, where you got that email, that text message. If there's anything I can do, how are you feeling about all this? Stop asking me that. how are you feeling about this? If this doesn't make you wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat, then you're not doing something right. You should look inside yourself and figure out what can you do to help advance this and make this better. Stop coming to me like I'm the arbiter for all things, Black.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think a couple of things. I think the fact that, organizations like Big Break Foundation exist is a testament to that. To answer your question, Sarah, of like, what can the industry do? We need more of this. Big Break should not be carrying the mantle. They should be one of the many avenues and resources that exist in order to feel heard, feel represented, and also get funding, because ultimately it's all smoke and mirrors unless there's true investment in funding of people of color. So that is empowering to know, and I hope that in the future there's more big breaks. There's Bigger Break, there's the Biggest Break Foundation, and then on the flip side, I think this narrative that investing in people of color is not good, that it's about charity as opposed to it actually is good business, it's so false. I mean, think about movies that broke records because they were unapologetic about Black excellence. Think about experiences that celebrate womanhood, that are not trying to come in to say, oh, you should look like such and such, but no, we are going to focus in on women and women in their full glory of all shapes and sizes, as opposed to the status quo. Think about brands in your personal life that you've connected with and why. A lot of times it's because it was unapologetic about what they stood for, and you were all in with your dollars. And we know that that's the case with experiences and themed entertainment. The things that tend to be most successful are the ones that are not trying to placate. They're saying, here's who we are, whatever that stands in, and we will attract the folks that want to be part of this. And by the way, those folks are then going to be our brand ambassadors who are going to share the gospel and invite everyone else they know, and that's what's going to turn into a bigger return on investment. So diversity actually is good business. It isn't a charity thing. It isn't about, well, we're just doing it for this month. It's actually smart and good business. So that narrative is slowly changing, but I think the more as an industry we can continue to, as leaders, as designers, as creators, the more we can get behind the kinds of projects that we choose to work on, because it's also meeting these goals. That's where it's going to start. You can't wait for the top down of, bigger IPs or studios to then give you that project. Some of it's a little bit of guerrilla warfare. You got to start from the bottom up. And as an organization, as you're pursuing projects, as you're growing your team, do the decisions that you're making reflect a more diverse sort of tableau for your organization? And what are you doing about it now? I think if for me, coming back to your question of where we can go, there was an amazing statistic that I saw that has really haunted me and stuck with me, of like America 2050. And it was a statistic that showed that by that year, more people in the United States specifically will consider themselves multicultural, mixed race, or other, right? That would be the first time in history that most people in the US will be some shade of brown. That's terrifying for people. That's terrifying because it's a huge paradigm shift. It's a shift in power structure, in politics, in decision-making, in social capital, and in the decisions that are made in terms of entertainment, disposable income. So if we today know that that's inevitable because procreation is a thing and people have babies and it's just natural, then it's actually smart business to think ahead and say, I need to start positioning myself as an organization, be able to meet that demand authentically, not in a condescending way. It is smart business. So I get worked up, y'all, but these are the things that I just go, it's right in front of us. It's good business, it's good PR, it's good for your culture, it's good for your morale, and it actually just makes for better product that you're putting out into the market. Come back to the kinds of things that we connect with. So I don't know. It's like how, and to second Nick's comment on just not having to be the ambassador all the time for outreach, for DEI, for design, as well as for operations and hiring. It is possible that one Black person in your office is really just there to be an awesome designer. and not to be the DEI professional. They are people who focus on that and are good at that. Hire accordingly.
Yeah, you can get certified in DEI. And
right?
Like,
and not because you're black either.
That is my yeah, because DEI includes a lot of different things.
A lot of things, yes.
Yeah, my
how
rule
many,
is
how many organizations have you seen posting about, and this is no shade on the role of DEI, it is absolutely necessary and integral. Like, why did we wait so long? But the companies that are putting it out there as a badge of honor, I go, yeah, but that's not enough. That's not enough. So,
no, I was just gonna say my rule is if you can get a degree in it or certification in it, like don't assume you can just do it off the bat. Like, and I think that could be said for anyone who has ever been forced to be a designer and didn't have a degree in design.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just a thought.
Speaking to a friend.
We've got about 6 minutes left. This hour has flown
What?
by.
Oh,
I'm not kidding.
Sorry, Nick, I hogged the conversation.
My teeth hurt, so you're fine. Or at least the space where my teeth used to be hurt, so you're totally fine.
Hashtag for the culture. For the culture.
Hashtag for the culture. Gotta do it. Gotta show up, represent. DEI.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I guess I just want to know if you have any like little nuggets of wisdom for people watching this who want to get into this industry. Like, what is making you hopeful? What let me end this on a positive note. That's all I'm asking.
Excellent.
Okay, maybe not.
No, there's positivity. I'm trying to be conscious. Okay, gosh, okay. This is a great example of why I think we're hopeful. Two things. Statistics are showing right now that the bulk of audience growth is not actually in with millennials, me, is with Gen Z, right? That is your 25s and youngers. That is the next generation of people who are calling us to task, or holding us accountable, that are showing up with their dollars or removing their dollars. And there's power in that. So giving voice to that audience is important. And that was confirmed by the Super Bowl. I'm going to bring it full circle now. The Super Bowl in the past, I don't know if you guys remember, but like the Super Bowl used to be where you'd go to the halftime show to see like entertainment that was universally acceptable and like was code for old people, right? It was artists from like 3 generations before that were big enough and had enough global appeal where they were just offensive a little bit, but they like everyone could pronounce their name, even me in Cameroon. Whereas now, what I saw yesterday, the artists that were on stage were people that I grew up with. So I'm now considered the old folk, right? And that it was humbling for me, but it was also inspiring because I was like, oh, wow, it's not about me anymore. It's about the next generation. And it's showing in the kinds of content that's out there and the content that's going to resonate and the types of experiences that people are going to buy into. So who am I to make myself feel comfortable? I need to put myself out of my comfort zone and look behind and say, yes, I'm in the room, I'm sitting at the table, but if I'm the only Black woman in the room, it is my responsibility to make sure that the door is open for someone else to have a voice. It is my responsibility to make sure that the next generation is being mentored in the way that allows them to have their own voice or discover their own voice. That's the mandate. And that's what I look forward to, not just as an individual, but as more organizations sort of look or act in that way.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, we're on our way out.
No, Nick, you gotta say something.
Okay. I mean, the only thing that I can say is I'm keeping we pretty vague right now for a certain reason, but we are working on an affinity group for this industry so that there is a place for people to discuss this further because I think we always get asked, we always, how can we help? How can we continue the conversation? Well, great. Besides, one time a month, we can talk about this throughout the year. So more details on that will come soon. All I can say is that if you I think one of the big things that has to happen in this industry that would help is make everything more transparent. Just do it. I guess I would say I'm a late comer to this industry because I didn't know it was a thing that I could do. I've always wanted to do it. I just didn't know that it was a thing I could do because no one came to my elementary school and told me, hey, you can be an Imagineer too. They were like, no, that's a thing for them, for those guys, and let them have that. So it's doable. It's attainable. And I think we have to, as an industry, stop acting like everything is there's only so many pieces to the pie. The pie is enormous. All have a bite, and we can all continue to not only make money, but build things that people enjoy and that entertain and that inform and educate.
Don't just be a consumer of the pie. Figure out how to make your own oven and bake your own damn pies.
Exactly.
Yes. I love a good pie analogy. And I think everyone else does too. Yeah, like just there is enough. Like we don't have to pretend that there's scarcity.
Right.
Like this is a thing. We all love to be entertained. Like we have been the whole time. We just gotta stop pretending like it's a limited resource because it doesn't have to be.
Right. I agree.
All right. Yeah.
All right. I guess that's the.
I think that was the alarm telling me to wrap it up.
There it is. Boom.
Yeah. So thank you, Free. Thank you, Nick. This was absolutely amazing. Like the last hour has been a complete dream come true for me. Like y'all are amazing. I want to remind all the viewers out there that Big Break is a thing you can follow and become involved with. We have a Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. You can subscribe on the website to get emails sent to your inbox. If you want to join the conversation, it is happening. So go ahead, chat with us, reach out, and we will talk to everyone soon. Thank you for joining this very, very special episode of Big Break Foundation.